we have a very interesting event in the afternoon. Although today it might be short notice for you, sir. But there is a Chandigarh Literary Society.
So you belong to Fatehabad basically?
Yes, I was born there.
And basic graduation is in what subject?
I graduated in 2016 from National Law School.
So this is the integrated course.
Yes, sir.
So you were actually on the campus there, or it's an affiliated college, and how does it work? This national law?
So it's an integrated 5-year course, and it takes 80 students, and that's the only course there is for the 5-year course. So there are no affiliated colleges as such.
So I'm seeing very interesting bit of it. You are being in Bhuj, Bhuj areas. How did you end up there? Only army people generally are there. कैसे आपको? How did you?
So my father is in the armed forces, so he retired as an IAS Retd.
Okay.
And so sir, because of that, being all over the country, there are Panchkula, Agra, Chandigarh, so sir, I've been all across the country, and that was why I had the opportunity of being.
Although it was not explicitly mentioned, it's very interesting that he's taking part in the local panchayat politics, and but I could see somewhere is the language of that area is it akin to Gujarati, or does it work?
Sir, Kutchi, the language, actually sir, it's wrong to say that Kutchi is the language. Gujarat is tricky in the sense that there are 7 to 8 dialects that occupy the desert areas. And all those dialects actually differ from each other in more than significant ways. Sir, in fact, many Kutchis would consider their language to be completely different from the neighboring Gujarati, sir. Now, why that is, sir, is because this region has more in common with people across the border, which still does not have influences from the Indo-Aryan family group.
Can we say it's a Sindhi influence or something else?
Sir, Sindhi influence is predominant in fact, sir. However, sir, from my limited understanding, I was there when I was in class 8, 9, 10, and I came to linguistics much later in life. So now that I think back upon it, sir, sometimes I feel that Sindhi influence is there. I think that language group it has many unique properties that need research in their own right. So, for example, sir, I sometimes feel that it has a Dravidian substrate. The grammatical forms that it took had very Dravidian features, and only nouns were from the Indo-Aryan group. So they were borrowing concepts and nouns only. And so that's why I thought that there's always need for more research in that area. Exactly what language group is that?
So is it that not a challenge for the primary school education? Tomorrow you could be in Gujarat, looking after the Directorate of School Education. So to reach out, and especially the tribals also speak the same language, or they got their separate language and dialects?
So in linguistics, the principle is that if the second generation of speakers do not speak the older language as their first language, then the language is considered lost, sir. It's a language that has begun its decline. So, sir, I think most of the languages there have had their second or third generation decline by now. So, they have adopted Gujarati wholesale, sir. It's only the old people who still stick to old languages. So, if I want to conserve a language, let's say, sir, that was my objective. So, the first and foremost thing I would do is ensure that the mothers speak to their children in the local language, which in technical linguistics we call Mamanese, the language that a mother teaches the children. So, students who are taught in Mamanese from 1 to 3 to 4 years old have a tendency to grow up more competent in basic mathematics, in literary skills, and later on actually go on to earn more, which is an evidence that we can get from the Arkansas project in US. So that's what my first priority would be.
Combining your legal background into linguistic minorities, so to say. So what exactly are Articles 29 and 30 of the Constitution of India provides?
So these articles provide for conservation of cultural aspects, maybe language, culture, religion, and so Articles 29 and 30, and I'm coming from my political science optional background in this. So these articles provide for a multicultural society, a society in which minorities do not feel threatened by the hegemonic or likely hegemonic pursuits of the dominant entities. So
So what exactly is the right, what is the fundamental rights that the minorities have been conferred as distinct from the majority? Is there some special right which the Indian Constitution confers on, firstly, what type of minority and what is that special right? Is it some special privilege that the majority community does not have? So what's your view on that?
So the constitution making process allowed for major communities to be represented as religious entities. So many minorities got what we call in political theory community rights. Now these community rights find an expression in Article 29 and 30, and the exact wording should be that they have a right to conserve their language, script and culture. Now the manifestation of these rights comes to language departments, universities that specially seek to ensure that their language and culture is preserved, and that commonality of culture in minorities and its preservation is the right that the constitution provides.
Is it only religious minority or the word linguistic minorities also given?
So linguistic minorities essentially, so linguistic minorities is an important part of Article 29 and 30. So that's why language, script and culture, and besides religious.
Staying with this article, let's say Christians want to open a Christian school entirely funded by their community. The Sikhs want to do that, or Jains want to do it. The Hindu community can also do that. So what is the special privilege which comes here?
So the privilege as such comes in the maintenance and administrative autonomy of institutions run by religious trusts or cultural trusts that are established. And this privilege could manifest itself in the form that the community could get a certain percentage of students that admitted into the institution. However, sir, this provision has also seen a lot of constitutional contestation. For example, St. Stephen's and multiple other institutions in Gujarat came under scrutiny from the courts. And I think some of the principles that have come to light are that 50% of the seats would be reserved for that community in that institutions. If the student does not assent to it or consent to it, any other language or culture would not be imposed upon him, even in a minority institution. And that considerations of merit and I think I'm sorry, sir, but I think those considerations of merit and harmony could not be sidelined even in minority institutions.
So are you familiar with the TMA judgment? You referred to this 16th judgment. What is enough about? This is exactly the crux of the judgment. Is that insofar as the standard of education is concerned, affiliation, infrastructure, teachers' qualification, then the state has the right to interfere whether you are a minority institution or a majority institution. And for the internal working, any institution, minority or majority, वो टीचर कैसे select करते हैं, what is their process, as long as they meeting the standard, that is an internal job of the managing body, whether minority institution or minority or majority. The only specific thing, and that is my interpretation, I don't know, correction, is that I have always, when I speak in various forums, that Indian Constitution is perhaps unique in the fact that it gives special privileges, not only protection to the minority community. Tomorrow, a majority Hindu community cannot say कि हम अपना funded ये कर रहे हैं, स्कूल बना रहे हैं, तो DAV में हम majority Hindu students को ही लेंगे. Whereas it is open to the Christian and the other, Nasasas or whatever, to be able to do that. So TMA by your legal background, आप ये पढ़ लेंगे.
Thank you, sir. I'm definitely clear on that concept.
Within the law, do they kind of take you from some specialization that you will be doing corporate law? How does it work?
So the National Law School model is basically modeled on Harvard Law School structure. So it was established by Ramjet Madani and Rajiv Gandhi after the Bhopal Cascade incident, where the government found itself short on legal skills. So it was established in 1987, and because it's modeled on Harvard Law School, we get 2 courses on sociology, 3 courses on history, 3 courses on political theory, 2 courses on economics, alongside 2 courses on international law, regular criminal procedure, criminal law, evidence, everything. So it doesn't allow us to specialize in something. Or as our professors or recently Padma Shri awardee Madhav Menon said, you specialize in everything. So that's the course structure in law schools.
But within that, if you were to get into the law, what's your specific area of interest where
there are no, we have to specialize in everything, and it was one of the most rigorous curriculums in all of the country, especially for law, however, there was scope for credit courses. So every now and then what would happen is that, for example, the retired Chief Justice of Sri Lanka would offer a course on international humanitarian law, and we would get an extra credit for it. So that is one way in which we were asked to specialize. However, for example, we had international humanitarian law as a regular course also.
So coming to a specific question, there are dues of a bank and the company has turned defaulter. What are the legal remedies available? Are there some alternative remedies to the bank to recover those dues?
I graduated in 2016, and since then I haven't worked in law. However, from what I remember, if the individual has not been able to pay payout, the bank would employ SARFACE Act, which allows for seizure of property and later securitization. Besides that, there are remedies in contract law which allow for the security again to be impounded by the court. And this would only be
what about this the Indian Banking Code and or debt resolution? Is there some special statute for that, or?
The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, if I am not wrong, allows for corporate entities to recover debts, and
Was it different from SARFACE?
SARFACE allows for individual possessions, if I am not wrong, SARFACE allows for.
But लेना because I'm also not sure. SARFACE में तो है कि वो द्वारा निकल गया, they will strip the assets like vulture, and the thing is gone. The objective of the debt resolution is, everyone takes a bit of a haircut, including the lenders, including the sovereign dues, and you try to run the institution so that broader economy does it.
How about a cookie?
No, sir, I am actually on a practice.
How about tea?
No, sir, I enjoy that also, sir.
Okay, I must compliment you on your communication skills. You're speaking well. I'd like to ask, where are you working at present then?
Sir, I quit my job in 2018 May.
Which job was that?
Sir, I was working for a political consultancy. But my primary job was to infuse a sense of model code of conduct inside the Bharatiya Janata Party apparatus. So I was designing training modules, and I was educating party leadership on, and basically, sir, I was the liaison officer between the Bharatiya Janata Party and the election commissions.
Okay. And you got an experience certificate for that job?
So I had it was a corporate job, sir. So I got a leaving certificate. I'm not sure if I got an experience certificate, sir. I think as far as that goes, I only got the experience.
So you've been preparing for the UPSC exam since then, or something else?
So I've been preparing since 2018, sir.
And done well, obviously, to clear the base.
Thank you, sir.
So your home state is Haryana. Let's talk about Haryana a little bit. If I were to ask you 3 problems that plague the state broadly, what would they be? Or 2?
So the 3 problems that I can narrow down right now, sir. First and foremost, sir, I think we have a structural economic shift going on in Haryana, sir, since the 1960s. It's been a green revolution economy. We have been paid by the central government to feed the country, and I don't think that economics is relevant anymore, sir. So there's a structural shift going on, and we need to provide employment for a a huge workforce that enters the market every year. So second, sir, I would say the rural Haryana society, and to an extent even the urban one, is segregated along caste lines. The deep segregation is mostly unacknowledged, sir. And this I think expands to control over public spaces like wells, ponds, akhadas in villages. So I guess that also requires some sort of a national reconciliation, sir. And third, sir, I would think the status of women and girls in Haryana, although it has improved in the past few years, it's still not up to the mark. So we're the lowest in terms of sex ratio in all the states. And I think that block we need to clear ourselves of, sir.
What is the sex ratio at present, do you think, in India and in Haryana?
Sir, if I'm not wrong, sir, I think the sex ratio at national level is 929. But sir, if I'm not counting the National Family Health Survey, because that survey had 60,000 odd households and there were many response biases there. So I think it's 929, 2011 census. And Haryana, sir, it's in the late 800s. I could be wrong, sir, but
I think it's crossed 900, and in the last, I would say, during the period of the present dispensation, but in the last 4 or 5 years, it's improved tremendously.
So the sample registration service would argue the same, sir, that it's improved. However, sir, there have been some methodological issues with survey registration births also, sir. And it is only as a safe measure that I would hark back to 2011 census, sir. And I'm pretty sure, sir, the next census would bring out some real good improvements in sex ratio.
When is the next census likely to take place instead of 2021? When now? Any date?
Sir, I would apologize, sir, I'm not aware of the exact timing. So, however, I remember I remember reading a report that the Ministry of Home Affairs is making preparations, and a big part of the census could also go online this time. So, if I could take a guess based on that assessment, I would argue, sir, I think the census could begin, the process could begin by late 2022, sir.
You know the Census Commissioner of India, or he could be called the Director General Census, I'm not sure what the post is.
No, sir.
He's a Haryana kind of IAS officer, that's why I asked. Not that you need to know. Okay, Haryana has recently reserved by order 75% of the jobs in the industry for, I believe, people of Haryana domicile. And courts have stayed that at the moment, but the Supreme Court has given some relief in that. What are your views on this whole policy and its effectiveness, its validity, its correctness, or otherwise?
So, the Haryana High Court has shown great wisdom, in my humble opinion, sir, in staying the legislation, sir. I think I could point out 3 primary reasons why I think so, sir. Mr. Ajay Bhar's arguments in the court, I think, are a good compass as to where we should excel. He argues that India's comparative advantage in the world economy right now lies in low-cost manufacturing labor. Now, if we erect walls around state boundaries and do not allow that cheap labor to move around the country, that comparative advantage could be lost very easily. So, as a national, it's a problem in game theory, but I think as a national perspective, sir, we should not erect these walls. 2, sir, these sorts of legislations historically have proven to be one of the greatest sources of capital flight, sir. So the Faridabad Industries Association that has filed this writ in Punjab and Haryana High Court, their primary argument was that if this legislation comes to bear, we will have to leave Faridabad, and we will think of relocating to Uttar Pradesh and other areas, sir. So the impact could actually run counter to the intention, sir. And the third argument is that the industries which would actually end up staying, their costs of hiring and ensuring a local populace as a workforce would climb to such an extent that they might not be in sync with the Atmanirbhar Bharat objective that we actually intend to achieve in the near future, sir. Because the logistics performance could go down significantly, sir, for Haryana also. So for these 3 reasons,
These are socio-economic reasons. What are the specific articles of the Constitution that would be offended as a sort of law?
So, the fundamental rights, many of the fundamental rights are Article 14, Article 15. So these articles ensure that no state would discriminate on multiple grounds.
That is exactly the point. Article 14 and 16, they say the state shall not. But here it is a private institution. So where is the question of these articles being attracted?
Yes, sir, indeed, sir. And that's one of the intricacies of law that allows for some states to go for these legislations. For example, sir, Andhra Pradesh also in the past has done this, but in that case, Parliament legislated that, sir. Sir, an argument could be made, in my humble limited opinion, sir, an argument could be made that even though it's not for state employment, definitely this is state-sanctioned way of employment, sir. Sir, many of these industries, because they offer SOPs to industries, sir, and ensure that these industries continue to receive benefits from the state, could be seen as some sort of mild extensions of state network itself. This is the
If
first.
you carry that argument, तो फिर तो रिजर्वेशन भी होगी, तो फिर वो स्टेट के स्केल भी देने पड़ेंगे, फिर हायर एंड फायर वाली पॉलिसी भी नहीं होगी. You can say that state is an instrumentality and the sovereign power it has created an enactment. ये बताएं कि normally we had heard that while the High Court is competent to strike down on law, this interim stay has something which has been frowned upon by the Supreme Court. अभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है कि प्लीज गो अहेड एंड पास फाइनल जजमेंट. So what was the urgency that the stay was granted? Couldn't the High Court actually hear that on day-to-day basis and conclude within 10 days, 15 days, 1 month's time?
Sir, I would plead ignorance on the Supreme Court's order in this regard, sir. I do not want to comment upon something I have not read, sir. And to be honest, sir, I would not be in a situation to assess the reasoning that the High Court might have employed in saying the legislation, sir.
ये बताओ कि you are running a private company, totally your 100% your own. And अगर आप पॉलिसी इस तरह की करो कि मैंने यहाँ to be specific, मैंने मुस्लिम को नौकरी नहीं देनी, Muslims need not apply. Is it any offence under the Constitution of India or any other law?
So this is an interesting area of law, sir, because while the Constitution ensures that the state or stately infrastructure does not discriminate among people, it doesn't really have any direct guidance on how private citizens might deal with each other. So while the Constitution addresses the vertical relationship of rights, it doesn't address horizontal relationship. However, sir, there have been some state legislations, I think in Maharashtra, which argue that, for example, sir, housing societies are not allowed to discriminate based on the religion of the person seeking seeking rent arrangements, sir. And High Courts, especially I think Bombay High Court, has directly ordered the state government to ensure that this sort of discrimination does not take place. However, sir, this would be a simplification of the issue, sir. In most such situations of discrimination, the religion, caste, or linguistic origin of the individual is not referred to as explicitly. So, sir, this is what we call a grey area in law, sir. It's the best constitutional development on this has happened in the United States, and they are also struggling with the issue, sir. So, I don't have a well-formed opinion on this.
Yogesh, can you tell about Geneva Convention, which is in news recent? What is Geneva Convention?
So the Geneva Conventions, there are 4 to 5 of them, sir, including the protocols.
Are they 4 or 5? Specific?
Sir, I think there are, if I'm not wrong, sir, and I'm thinking yes, sir, there are 2 conventions and 3 protocols. But I could be wrong, sir. So these conventions together regulate the conduct of wars, and how the prisoners of war are to be treated. They basically, sir, provide a quoting to some agreements that had already been in place in the 16th and the 17th and the 18th century when European nations went to war with each other. So simple principles like you would not attack civilians, you would treat prisoners of war with respect, you would allow consular access.
Because currently we have seen that Russia is occupying parts of Ukraine and some civilians are facing the raid. So which part of convention applies to the civilian part? Because you have mentioned the prisoners of war. It relates to the 3rd convention. Can you be specific for civilians which convention of Geneva is taking
sir, I would not know.
No issues. Can you differentiate between Bonn Convention, Bonn Summit, and Bonn Challenge? I will give you a hint. It's related to environmental issues.
So the Bonn Convention, again, sir, if I'm not wrong, sir, deals with the migratory birds, and the Bonn Challenge was a specific challenge for afforestation, sir, which India accepted and I think overwhelmed the challenge.
Can you give the exact Indian Bonn Challenge target? Because India was a host to the summit and it took the challenge in the right spirit and has set up quite ambitious goals for itself. Can you give?
No, sir, I do not have this.
And you mentioned watching historical documentaries as one of your interests. Which was the last historical drama you watched?
Sir, I recently rewatched one of my favorite historical dramas. It's a comedy, The Death of Stalin. It's a movie that I recently watched.
Any key lesson you imbibed or you would like to share from that movie?
Sir, The Death of Stalin is a movie full of lessons. Sir, if I could narrow it down to 3 lessons that I took, sir. One, sir, even though Stalin was considered one of the most brutal dictators and led to mass killings all across the world, sir, upon his funeral, streets were flooded with people coming from the countryside to pay a visit, which I found to be an interesting phenomenon, to say the least, sir, which maybe speaks to the volume and the power of the Soviet propaganda to display the hero in a light that is above all else. Though, sir, The Death of Stalin is a movie that portrays some of the greatest protagonists in Soviet life as very human forms, sir. So Nikita Khrushchev is shown as a comedian who tries to make Stalin laugh at dinners and goes back to his house and discusses the jokes with his wife to ensure that he has not said anything that might get him killed. So that very human aspect of some of the great people like Adolf Zhukov, the person who repelled the German invasion, these people, sir. So it's a General Zhukov. And third, sir, how delicate transitions of power are generally. And if the procedure is not constitutionally accepted, it could lead to a complete die down of the apparatus itself. So it's a delicate moment in time.
Can we link Russian Revolution to India's freedom struggle? Was it, can be highlighted in some, that years were quite important in Indian freedom struggle when Russian Revolution was taking place?
Sir, there are 3 ways in which I could link the Russian Revolution with the Indian national movement, sir. First and foremost, sir, the arrival of workers on the Indian national movement scene, sir. It was actually commented upon by Vladimir Lenin himself. It was after Bal Gangadhar Tilak's arrest later, and not the first arrest, the second arrest, where workers in Surat and Nagpur held mass strikes. Second, sir, there was a direct link between the tactics employed by Indian revolutionaries and the tactics employed by Russian revolutionaries. Although they were nihilists then, and Indian revolutionaries sort of took that lesson. And third, sir, there was the Indian national movement took a very socialistic turn, and some of the finest brains in the Indian national movement came up from a leftist perspective after the Russian Revolution.
Suppose is a time machine invented, and since we are interested in history, which time era would you like to be, and which historical character you would like to observe from close quarter?
Sir, I would want to be at the Battle of Waterloo, but far away from it, sir.
Any famous quote from
Which side
Napoleon?
of it? Which side?
Sir, I would not pick any side, sir. I would just watch those guys prepare a battle plan, sir. So, sir, there, but I would again want to be very far from it, just with a good modern pair of binoculars to observe enemy movements.
So just like to observe, no way.
No, sir, I would
I have
not.
2 quick
Okay.
questions. Just changing gears a little bit, you mentioned cricket, football, etc. as your game. What is your favorite sport?
So, my favorite sport is football, sir.
What is the state of football in India? What is India's rank? What can be done to do better at the football level? And as you know, football is a game which requires the least amount of equipment. It's not expensive to play. India's sporting revolution in football is still awaiting.
Football was one sport that I always played and never watched because sir, there were only so many hours in a day. But sir, I did get some lessons because I played at district levels and then university levels. So the first lesson was that we don't even have 100 professional football players in India, sir, which was something that it struck me even when I was playing. So the reason that they cited was that there's a sheer lack of money. Sir. The coming of a professional Premier League has tried to salvage that situation to some extent. Then, sir, second thing that we can do is ensure that the raw talent is not allowed to transfer to other sports. It's not that we don't have talent on the ground. We have hockey talent on the ground, we have football talent on the ground, we have cricket talent on the ground. The hockey talent and cricket talent have institutional mechanisms. The football talent is just transferred or dissipated into different fields, sir. So we need to catch that, sir. Third thing that we can do, sir, is ensure that there is actually success, attract success. Cricket was also not all that big before 1983 tournament, sir. So I think we need to focus on the current national team and ensure that they do well in some Asian Cup or some national tournament of the South Asian states. And I think success will follow success.
So top down as well as bottom up approach is required. Have you heard of Novi Kapadia?
No, sir.
He's a football commentator of Britain. Okay, last question from me. Supposing you were to rank countries at the global level, top 5, on economic and military power, points out of 10, it's a bit complicated. 5 for economy, 5 for military power. Equal points for each. Rank the top 5 powers.
May I correct my thoughts on this? Sure. So the first and foremost would be United States. 10 aircraft carriers allows them 5 over 5 on the military elements, and I think we would be the largest economy in the world. $21 trillion economy would get them at least 4.5. So the only reason why they would not get that 0.5 is because China is at least $15 trillion now, and they're catching up fast. So second would be China, sir. $15 trillion economy would get them at least 3.5 marks on the economy. So and on the military elements, sir, they're not a blue water navy yet. And I think their strategy of just having as many vessels as possible and not focusing on capabilities could become a problem if they were to get into a full-scale battle, even with advance. So, sir, 3.5, and I would give them 3, sir. Then, sir, I think Russia would definitely be the third, sir. Even though their economy has always been a laggard to the rest of it. So, their military might is incredible, sir. And for a country to have very bad economy and a lot of influence in its neighborhood, I guess their military deserves credit. So, sir, I think 2 on economy, but 3.5 on their military skills. Then, sir, I would actually like to group European Union as an entity. Okay. If they do overcome their Germany versus French issues, France issues, and they do end up forming a joint command, I think, sir, their military would be as detrimental as the Chinese or the Russian military. On economy, they would actually do better than China, but, sir, their military progress would still lag well. So lower than China, lower than Russia, but their economy would be better, sir. And last, on this, sir, I would grade India, sir. We're a growing economy, world's largest military force. World's largest military force do not do as well in terms of what we can achieve. It's a bulky force. But still, sir, we could defend our own country immensely, sir. So that's why India would be at fifth.
Okay, I think so. We can do that for us.
Working for a political party and listening to election commission, did it ever enter your mind? Why not get into active politics from day one?
So the reason why we were hired in the first place was that we are politically neutral. In fact, so it was actually interesting to me also that Bharatiya Janata Party wants to ensure that the people who work for them do not hold any political ideology. In fact, it was a political neutrality which allowed us that influence over the party apparatus, and it was never a part of the plan to join politics. So although sir, I'm very interested in how people behave in groups and how people behave when they take political decisions, but I never thought politics was an area of my interest.
Thank you. I think so. We'll give you some feedback. And should I begin? Yogesh, you did very well. And